Hey, everybody, welcome to the Agency Operators Podcast. Today I'm joined by Rob Principe of eTail Advisors. How you doing, Rob?
I am doing great. And I love the graphics. Like
Oh,
this podcast is official.
oh
I'm
yeah.
honored to be here.
As soon as you put that 6 second loop at the beginning, boom, right?
Oh, yeah, dude, it's done. It's
Man,
done.
happy Veterans Day, by the way. I'm happy to have you here and chat a little bit about whatever it is that we're here to chat about. I mean, there's a lot in the Amazon space. We speak to a lot of different people. You and I are both service providers, and I know you have years of experience in e-commerce
Mhm.
and working in different positions that essentially lead you to a very interesting place that you're at. You were kind of just sharing here off camera a few minutes ago, kind of being at the center of it all, being exposed to
Yeah.
brands, being exposed to SaaS agency, not just Amazon, outside of Amazon too.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I would love to kind of start this conversation just by asking you about your background and what were the things that led you to do what you do now.
Sure, sure. So I've been in CPG since 2009. Man, I'm aging myself. Sounds like 100 years ago, doesn't it?
Yeah.
2009. Um, and I've been in e-commerce since 2013. During the last 12, almost 13 years, I've split that time between the brand side and the service provider side. I've worked for three full service agencies. They were mostly focused on Amazon, and I worked for a SaaS provider for a brief amount of time. I was a jungle scout for about 5 or 6 months. Um, in June of 23, I was working at NetRush as a sales director. It was a great place to work. I love those guys, but I personally was just completely burnt out on agency sales. I had done it for years, and in the Amazon space, it was just tough, man. I was done. So much respect to all the folks who are still doing it out there, but it's a tough hole. And so I took a little bit of time off, went to work for Blue Wheel Media. I really loved the team there. My favorite part about working at Blue Wheel Media was I learned about all the non marketplace things. So I learned about paid media, organic social, paid social, TikTok, what real creative is, not just, you know, A plus brand store and PDPs. And once I learned that, I started thinking, I've known more than a few people who worked for themselves consulting, but what I knew I didn't want to do is just be another consultant, Rob Principe at gmail.com and just try to do it all. So I whiteboarded and I said, what do I love or what have I loved the most about the last 15 years of my career? And as cheesy as it sounds, it was people. And, I'm not good at that many things, but one thing I'm really good at is making friends. I used to say networking, but I think the word networking sounds too transactional, too sterile. I feel like I really make friends. And I was like, all right, so nobody's going to pay me just to hang out with me. So I need to figure out a way to monetize this. And so I came up with eTail Advisors. A good friend of mine, Kate Bray, which I'm sure a bunch of you guys know, she helped me with all of my branding. And I set it up in three different ways. So I do full service e-com consulting for small to medium sized brands, mostly in vitamins, minerals, and supplements and pet. I work with brands all the way from pre-launch to like $20 million. Not that I would turn down a large brand, but it just seems like this is where I add the most amount of value. Um, and I'm sort of a jack of all trades, master of one. Out of everything I know, I still know the most about Amazon, but ironically enough, out of everything I talk about, I enjoy talking the least about Amazon because I've been speaking about it since 2013. And even though things are changing at a breakneck speed, it's fun for me to talk about paid social, organic social, TikTok shops. I am, shoulder deep in learning as much as I can about SEO and GEO for large language models. That fascinates me. Um, the second thing I do is matchmaking, which is where I really get to leverage what I love to do, and that's making friends. So I've got about 20 to 25 different vetted service providers from all over the map. From web dev to 3PL all the way through full service and ads on all platform, um, SaaS providers, fee retrieval, so on and so forth. And then lastly, I help with placement. So if I speak to a brand or an agency and they just happen to be looking for somebody, I've got a folder with, I don't know, 15 to 20 people who I've worked with, worked for, or who are personal referrals. Um, and I help to match them up for a small finder's fee. So I'm really grateful and really blessed that I've been able to figure out what I really enjoy doing and make a living at it. And quite frankly, I'm going to ride this train as long as I can. I haven't experienced anything better, and I've had some really great jobs um, than working for myself.
Yeah, entrepreneurship is unlike anything else. But it's a bull, right? It'll throw you off and shake you up, and as long as you can stay on the bull, you're good to go. And I think back to your point about it's the dream, right? Hanging out and getting paid. Like, not saying work and hanging out could be one thing. I'm not saying that sitting around and chatting is all that we do, but I mean, this is a version of that, and this is why I do this podcast is mostly, I call it like a fractional mentorship, right? Everybody has
Oh, I love it.
that nugget of gold that they share. And so I just learn from everybody, and I get a chance to explore all the different ways that people do business and look at things. And it's so interesting because so many people who I speak to are talking about Amazon, but they are actually looking at Amazon in a completely different way many of the times. And so you start to look at all the different facets of e-commerce as a whole, and their approach, and finding what you do best is, I think, key to business, is what I'm finding. I used to beat I used to beat myself up a lot about the things that I couldn't do, right? Because I see other people on my team. They're like, man, these people are so much smarter than me. But I mean, that's essentially what we look for, to work with people that are smarter than us. And I'm just like, you know what? I can't beat myself up for the things that I'm not good at. So I just got to focus on things that I am. So
Amen.
yeah,
I fully agree. I realized a while ago that instead of trying to get better at the things I'm not naturally good at, I'm just going to lean into what I'm good at. Nobody will or wants to hire me to be hands-on keys to run ads, right? I'm not setting up campaigns. I'm not doing those things. There are people who are naturally good at that type of work. There are people who are experienced, who are experts, and that's their lane. But a lot of those people don't feel comfortable hitting a trade show and meeting a bunch of people and networking and visiting booths and just really putting themselves out there. Um, and that's where I feel like I shine. And I feel like I'm really good at sort of being an intersection where I connect people who wouldn't normally cross paths. And even if I don't know somebody directly who is an expert in a space, I'm normally just one person removed, right? For example, 3, 4 days ago, I was here and I got an email from somebody who runs a small service providership here in Florida. She's got about 5 employees. It's mostly focused on marketplaces. I've only spoken to her for like twice, and she hits me up and she's like, I need somebody who's an expert on international shipping, but nothing with the US. Like the manufacturers in China, and the product has to get to the UK and the EU at Amazon facilities. Pasha, I don't know anything about that. I know zero. But what I do know is I know Alexandra Ramirez, who works at Avask, and I know Avask does that, and I know that is international. So I pinged her and I said, "Listen, do you know anything about this, or do you know somebody?" And she's like, "We actually have a sister company that does exactly that." So I hopped on the phone with her contact. I made the connection, and they're talking within the next few days, and there it is.
amazing.
The wrap. It's done. From somebody who I talked to twice, who had no idea where to even get started, other than a Google search. I hooked her up with somebody who's been doing it for years and has a great reputation in the space.
Yeah, and I love that perspective on the whole networking thing. Like you said, networking does sound sterile, and it sounds just like, oh, I'm out here just making business. That's all it is. But no, like these are real people with real needs, and people are most of the time, I mean, we're earning money to feed our families, right? And so that whole way of looking at it, I think, is much more important. And so if you know somebody that knows somebody, you don't even understand how valuable you can be to somebody's business, especially at a time where they really need something. Like if there's momentum behind something that they're working on, you could be the key to unlocking a very important door for them, for their business, for their future and whatnot. So that puts you at a very, I feel like, important position, because maybe you're not doing things on the, let's say, technical level, right? But as long as you can open that door, that's all that really matters. So with the, sorry, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, I mean, and the last thing about that is I feel like at least for now, and I'm not saying forever because who knows where this revolution can go. But what I do, you can't really AI yet. You can't really AI a dozen years in the place, working at agencies and brands, being at all these trade shows and conferences. Um, and maybe somebody trusts me a little bit more than whatever Grok or Gemini or chat spits out at them,
I
right?
think that's so important. Right now, everyone's complaining about, oh my God, my job is being replaced by AI. I'm not saying everybody, but many
Yeah.
people are worried. There's insecurity, generally speaking, about what this means for people's jobs. And
Mhm.
so I think that trust will always be around because it's a human aspect in general. And you don't always trust a robot, or there's limitations to the robot, regardless of how intelligent they get, regardless if they are walking around in our kitchens, in our laundry rooms.
Like the Jetsons. It's so
Ex-
wild.
exactly, but like that's going to be our future, right? So they're going to
Mhm.
handle those things. We're going to have access to AI and all the different interactions. Our microwave will be able to talk to our stove, whatever. But
Mhm.
there's going to be that element that will never go away, and I think that that's super important because, I mean, right, how could you replicate all those connections and all those, you can, I guess, historically kind of sequence it together, but it's
Mhm.
never going to be the same. And I think that's the value add when it comes to service providers and agencies specifically. People are not hiring agencies because of this SOP that they have or whatever else. They're hiring based on the conversation that they have with the people at the team. And they say, oh, these guys feel like they know what they're doing. I'm confident that they have my best interests at heart. And that communication over time gives them that feeling continuously. Like my agency only has 30-day billing. I've never locked anybody in a contract ever. And I don't believe in people who are like, you have to sign with us for a year, or 6 months, whatever. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's that relationship. So
That's very unique.
is it?
Yes, that's very unique. I've gone back and forth on brands' behalf or when I worked at agencies, and I don't know. Normally, the shortest I'll see is 6 to 8 months with like a 60-day out. But a lot of agencies are trying to lock people in for 2 years now with auto renewals. And if I'm supporting a brand search, that goes right out the door. I'm like, nope, that can, that cannot happen. First of all, any sort of 2 year agreement for an agency is lengthy. And then any sort of like renewal that's automatic, I don't know. These brands, especially, these small brands get busy and they're doing a million different jobs. And maybe it's not top of mind that on March 1st, if you don't give notice, it auto renews for a year. And it may not be a big deal because they're happy with the service provider, but what if they were thinking about changing, or what if they want to negotiate scope or price or whatever,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden they wake up on March 10th and they're like, "Hey, we want to make changes." They're like, "Sorry, you're locked in."
Yeah. The reason people do that is because the acquirers of agencies want to see long lockup periods because it gives them security. But in reality, nobody's secure, and it's not fair to lock in a brand because things happen within their company
I
that
fully agree.
might so it's like you're locked into a 6 month contract, but if something in their business has changed this month, then you should have that flexibility as a partner. So would love to hear a little bit more of like what are the primary things that you're seeing right now. Like is there any patterns that you're observing kind of coming into 2026
Mhm.
from the agency side or from the brand side? Is there anything that you see kind of popping up, question marks that people are having is there any uncertainty about what AI might mean, and the whole
Mhm.
Rufus and Cosmo thing, or everybody's kind of clear on that? Because that's what I'm seeing. Everybody wants to know, how do I optimize for AI? I heard Amazon's changing things and whatnot.
There's so much, right? And we could speak about this for hours. So where I'll start is, is where I'm most exposed to. So, like I said, I work, mainly for small to medium-sized brands from pre-launch up to the high end, like $20 million a year. And what I find is a lot of them are still trying to get the basics right. You know what I mean? A lot of them are still trying to get PPC right and maybe some DSP. But even just broaching AMC or even expanding off platform like TikTok and TikTok shops and affiliates, they want to do it. They are smart people. They understand the value add, but they're going in a million different directions. They have investors, they have manufacturing, they're trying to figure out ops. Their boss wants profitability to go up. When you're at a small brand and say you're at a pet supplement brand, you do $10 million a year total and $2 million a year on Amazon, and you're juggling so many different things because there's 6 people on your team. And the head of sales is doing brick and mortar and e-com, and they have one analyst that's doing a million different things. It's so hard to be like, hey, I heard they're running DSP with partnerships with Disney and Google and Netflix. And how do we go OTT? Like, they're not thinking like that. And it's not because they're not intelligent people, but there's only 24 hours in a day. They're
Sure.
they're balancing internal, external, hiring, so many things, what because you're a small business owner. Um, that I try to bring context and clarity and prioritization, right? One of the things I tell 99% of the brands I work with is in 2025, no, almost 26, is nothing happens in a vacuum. What happens on shelf affects what happens online, what happens on Amazon affects what happens on social, vice versa. If you're still siloing things, you're losing and you're behind. And I know that most companies, I don't care if you do 50 or $100 million a year, nobody has infinite resources. So you have to think of things comprehensively, but you still have to have priorities, right? And depending on where you are, it could be top end revenue, it could be profitability, it could be product launches. I think the mistake a lot of service providers make is they assume what the brand's priority is, right? I mean, if you're a brand and you've been around for 4 years and you've grown 25% year to year, and you're looking for investment or you want to be acquired, maybe not margin and profitability is your number one priority. Maybe it's top end sales because you want to be acquired by P&G or whoever, and they could fix profitability because of their scale. Maybe they just want to see proof of concept. Or if you're a brand and you have no intention on selling and you're bootstrapping it, then profitability and margin is a very big deal, right? So you have to understand these things and then sort of prioritize accordingly. And right now, I one of my big challenges, Pasha, is people like you and I are so in the bubble, right?
Yep.
So things that we think should be common knowledge and you should have been working on this already a year ago, 2 years ago, whatever. It's not for small business owners, making dog food or fish oils for humans or whatever their thing is. That's their passion, not DSP or AMC or TikTok shops, right?
Yep.
Um, so it's really getting to their level where they are in the process and not having me be like, you need to optimize SEO and GEO for large language models when they haven't even launched DSP and marketplaces are their number one revenue driver, right? You've got to get to where they are while educating them on next steps. And that's from a brand perspective, from an agency perspective. Most agencies I speak with are at the intersection of we we want to be specialized, but we don't want to turn away business because we don't know how to do this. And I I get it. as a salesperson, I used to want to sell everything I can, and it killed me when somebody was like, "Hey, we need help on Walmart," but we didn't do Walmart yet, right? I'm like, "Oh man, I could have sold that. I could have made X amount in commission, but now I have to send it somewhere else, and somebody else is going to get paid on it." But now, from my perspective, I get it, but you can't be good at everything. Right, and a lot of times when I'm working with brands, I tell them to kind of beware of that. Beware of service providers who you just name things off and they're like, "Yeah, we do that, we do that, we do that, we do that." Do you? Or do you just kinda do that? Or will
Yeah,
you just hire somebody who worked at TikTok for 18 months and now you say that you have a TikTok service, right? It's I think agencies need to be conscious of that, and not that you have to be like an inch wide and a mile deep, but like find your lane and get really good at it where you could add value, well, where you'll retain your clients, because retention is so key, right? And go deep there. So that's kind of my like high level look of what the brands I'm speaking with are kind of challenged with, and the agencies I speak with are kind of in transition.
I think there's something to be said about being a specialist. Like we all get that feeling, like if you ever see somebody from overseas service providers and they send you a list of all the services and you're actually looking for the things that are not on that list because there's just like 50 things mapped out. And it's like,
Mhm.
how good could you possibly be at all these things? It's like if the plumber shows up at your house and he's like, "Oh, I also do electric and roofing and bricks and masonry and woodwork," and you're
Exactly.
just like, "What kind of do you do any of those things well?" So it's nice to feel confident about staying in your lane. And kind of back to your other comment, about like we think because we're in this like echo chamber, especially like on LinkedIn and things like that, all the service providers know each other, right? And we're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that's common knowledge, but we forget sometimes because I always look at it like, oh, if I'm going to record a video, oh, that's been recorded. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows this. It's like there's a lot of YouTube videos out there about those things. Yes, that may be true, but you have to catch people where they are in the moment, and I kind of okay, so I just had a conversation yesterday with a brand, and they said,
Mhm.
okay, we're doing X amount, let's say 80K a month, and we want to get to $1 million a month
Okay.
in general, right? And it's like, how do I do that? And like, to be honest, my answer was like, Amazon is not going to get you there alone. If you want that, I mean, we can contribute. We don't do anything outside of the Amazon world, but you're going to need the whole ecosystem. You're going to need the social media, the Google and Meta, the TikTok and the Walmart, and build your D2C. Oh, how do I build my D2C? I don't have a 3PL. Okay, start with using the warehouse at Amazon and doing multi-channel fulfillment for Shopify, and then from there, if you need to, you can do a 3PL if it's going to be cost savings and whatnot. And so it's like they're focused on doing a lot of international expansion. Meanwhile, I think there's a lot of meat on the bone just in North America for them, and
Mhm.
then kind of going into EU because there's a lot of costs involved as well. So you kind of have to play the game and take it step by step. So yeah,
I
it's not
I
just one thing.
completely agree. Yeah, it's I think it's become sort of a cliche, the consultative selling, but it's become a cliche for a reason, right? Because it's the truth. Now, does everybody say they do it, really do it? No. I think when you're consultative selling, I think the proof is in the pudding when you tell them you're not the answer for them, or you can't fix that one part or grow that one part. Like, hey, we don't do TikTok and TikTok shops. We recognize the value of it.
Yeah.
We could help leverage it. So for IE, I read the other day that 60% of the time, if a shopper discovers something on TikTok, they'll at least search for it on Amazon or buy it on Amazon, right? So that's a conversation that you could have even if you don't do TikTok shops. And I think, like anything else in life, these brands appreciate honesty. Well, all right, I was speaking with Pasha. That's not his jam. He told me it's not his jam. He recognizes the value in it. And then maybe you moved it a step further and you were like, I know somebody who's really good at it. or I know Rob and he may know somebody. And then you help them along their journey with sort of nothing in return. Right. It's that's how you earn trust, is just being upfront about what you know. I mean, if somebody's like, "Hey, Rob, I need help with X," and I'm like, "Oh, I don't know that, but I do know somebody who knows that," or sometimes I do know that, and we could geek out and we could go deep and we could do all of the things. Which, by the way, total sidebar, something I need to get better at is like not giving the milk away for free. Like I'll hop on a call, a like discovery call, and the call turns out to be an hour long, and I told them everything that they would have paid me to tell them, and it's just like, oh man, but that's something
That's how
that's
it
more
goes.
art than science, right? That's
It,
more
it,
art than
I
science.
think, like, it's like those YouTube videos that just tell you the whole thing if they're trying to sell a course, but it's that value first type of
Mhm.
situation, because it's clear that you're a wealth of knowledge if you've just provided somebody a whole bunch of information in an hour. Like that call that I just mentioned, we were speaking also for an hour. It is an introductory call. I gave them so much information that by the end of the call, the gentleman already was like, he was like kind of losing words and stuff. He's just like, I'm trying to process all this information, and like that, for me, that's like a good sign, where it's just like, all right, like chew on that for a while, come back to me. I'm happy to keep talking, because there is a lot, right? Like you're speaking to people who have been doing this. Like, I mean, I've done this my entire career, even though I'm not that old, but
Mhm.
whatever, 15 years selling on Amazon roughly. So a lot has changed, and the world is always expanding and evolving, and there's always more to learn as we go. But yeah, I think that value first approach is always the most important. And Rob, to kind of close off, I'd love to know what's the best way that people could get in touch with you if they're looking for some matchmaking or some consulting.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So I am pretty active on LinkedIn, if you guys haven't noticed. So the DMs are always open. Principe at eTail Advisors, sorry, at eTail-advisors.com. I am always open to chat. I'm always open to nerd out. One of my favorite things about working for myself is, dude, I talk to who I want to talk to, and I don't talk to who I don't want to talk to. There's no internal meetings. There's no meetings to talk about meetings. I could have convos. If I go to a show, I meet with who I want to meet with, and I don't meet with who I don't want to meet with. And um, I am legitimately interested in people and their stories and why they do what they do. And I think that resonates with folks. One of my best friends, who's brilliant in so many different ways, he said something to me, and I use it all the time. Authenticity is currency.
Hmm.
And I truly believe that. And
Yeah.
I think that people are smart. I think that they could suss out bullshit. I really, really do, especially in this space, especially when people will sell you the sun, moon, and the stars. Oh yeah, sure, we can grow your business from 80,000 to $1 million a month on Amazon for $20,000 in ad spend, and then they start with you, and they're like, "Oh no, this is impossible." And I think when you find somebody who's authentic, brand, agency, consultant, whoever, you kind of stick with that person. And that's who I like to think I am. So I am open for convos. I do have the bandwidth for one more engagement right now through about March, but I'm always open for matchmaking.
Awesome. People hang out with Rob. All right. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your nuggets of gold here today, Rob. And thanks everybody for watching.
Thank you for having me.
Catch you on the next one.
All right.
Bye for now.